So, hi all. Welcome to our new series that is on managerial and professional stresses which are faced by individuals in an organization. So, basically, this series is a part of management course which we have recently launched, and it is part of a playlist with the name management course. So, we will be including this there. So, this is a very important topic, and recently we have seen the consequences of stresses in managerial and professional life of people. It is very evident, and mostly it is not even mentioned in the books and journals like which we have already. There is very thought provoking and intense topic, so I would really recommend. So we have included this in our management course. So we will be bringing these kind of modules in the near future, so do join us. We also are looking for a full organizational behavior course which you guys want to enroll, so we will mention that in the end. So I welcome you all to this new module of stresses in managerial and professional life. So basically nowadays, as we see, there are a lot of problems which are faced by individual at every level in an organization, and this leads to stress. So we will discuss why these kind of stresses happen and what are the factors affecting it and how we can resolve that. So these are the number of problems encountered by individuals, interpersonal problems faced by top executives. As we know, there is a lot of responsibility on the top of executives of an organization of a multinational company. So these kind of interpersonal problems results in, alcohol ingestion. Sometimes person goes into stress. There is also, we have seen, marital instability has been seen, and there are a lot of physical complaints as well. And this we are seeing in this modern technology era where most of the things are automated, but still there's a lot of huge pressure on top executives. So there is this problems are stress. So we will see why it is caused and what are the stress factors, what are those factors. Interpersonal problems faced by top executives. So stress has become lately a disease with factors like job insecurity, personal problems, and rapidly changing society. So due to job insecurity, with the most of the jobs done by automation, softwares, and no need of more labor in multinational companies, it has become a norm. Stress has become a norm in multinational companies. So there is a recent incident, it's unfortunate incidents where some of the lives of individuals have also gone. So this kind of stress can lead to extreme physical trauma as well. There are some personal problems which a person goes through in his life, in his or her life, that also sometimes triggers the reason for stress. And rapidly changing society. The society has been changing so rapidly that it is difficult for an individual to cope up with the existential technology advancements in the society. Even executives should have initiated a seed of rebellion among them. This thing is usually nowadays termed as revolt of middle managers. So what exactly is that? So there are different dimensions of stress. There are different symptoms, behaviors, how people react, and managers and professionals under stress, forces that exert pressure on them. So, what are the forces, internal, external, which are affecting different dimensions of stress, adaptation of stress, how you are adapting to the stress. So, what is a stress? Stress is an external force apart from the individual operating on a system, be that system itself, an organization, or a person. So, any external thing apart from you, you as an individual working in an employee in a company. So, stress can occur at any level, whether it is a system which is causing that stress, or a whole organization culture is causing that stress, or the individual person. Sometimes there is a clash of individual conflicts happening. So, that kind of conflicts which also can result in a stress. So, stress is an external force operating on a system, be that operating on a system, be that a system itself, an organization, or a person. So, how we can relate to it analogy? Like example, we have a government hospital or a state governed hospital, and what happens in state governed hospitals? Like sometimes people have attrition, people leave the hospital, and to compensate for their leaving, they are not bringing more doctors or professional staff into the hospital. So what happens? There is an ongoing burden on the existing employees which results in the high tension and stress. So, as we have seen, it leads to unnormal behavior and it leads to stress, due to which existing employees experiences heavier workloads because small number of people will be performing the same amount of work which is performed by the in the past with a huge number of workloads workforce. Now, if supposing we have 100 amount of tasks which needs to be done by 50 employees, so when 20 employee leaves, the remaining 30 are taking the workload of those 50 who lived, and they are not even replaced. So that kind of situation where there is immense amount of workload but the number of employees remain same, in a situation like this can lead to stress. So this can lead to disorders among some hospital employees, and this is very evident. This is fact. This is not something fiction we are saying. This has been happening in the past, and we are currently also seeing this kind of situation. So this leads to disorders among some hospital employees, and they are overburdened, they are exhausted, they are not in their current mental health state. Job insecurity is another potential response to the stress of budget cuts. Sometimes what happens when a company is not performing to that optimal level, they try to cut the cost. By cutting cost means there is a possibility they might want to reduce the remuneration of an employee, which poses a threat to an individual, which can also be a cause of stress. Sometimes they want to try something new, they want to experiment with their knowledge, with their technical expertise, but they may not even try that because of the fear of mistake, which will affect the performance of the company, and they are not willing to take any risk. They stay where they are and they don't try to implement some of the ideas which may prove costly to the organization if they're unsuccessful. So they don't even try their new ideas. They feel suffocated, they don't want to experiment because somewhere they don't have that kind of power and they don't want to bear the consequences of the loss to the company. What are the different kind of reaction to the stress? It depends on three factors basically. What are the different kind of stress reactions people give? It is dependent on three factors. What are these factors? His or her capacity to withstand stress, how much a person can withstand to a condition of stress, magnitude of the stress. What is the magnitude? We will be discussing with examples what we mean by the magnitude of the stress, and the options available to the individual if we are not meeting the certain criteria and we are at the receiving end of the stress. His or her capacity to withstand stress, by meaning of that is, for example, at a high executive position, vice president gets fired from a bank, but one, his attitude is like, whatever role I was performing in this particular company, surely I will pack my bags and perform the same duties in another company. Why does he say that? Because his mindset is flexible, he's confident on his skills, and he's not worried that he will definitely, and this kind of attitude leads him to take a job within 3 weeks. Whereas another individual who has been recently fired loses his or her confidence and is not able to withstand that kind of stress and is not able to even apply for the VP position. So his or her capacity to bear the stress can also define the factors or to the reaction to the stress. Magnitude of the stress. So what are the magnitude of stress? Suppose, for example, there is a low appraisal in an organization, then it is a normal kind of a stress. This will not create a high magnitude stress in an employee because it's a low appraisal. And you understand that in a big organization, there is a distribution and there is a thing where only specific people will be getting promoted. But when it comes to something like a retail store getting burned, so this is a high level magnitude of stress. So this will create a huge magnitude and it has a adverse effect on the owner. So these are the different levels, different magnitude on which different levels of stress is getting created in a person. Based on that, the reaction to the stress will depend. And third criteria on which the reaction to the stress will depend is the options available. Example, supposing in a city where there are less number of demands for the fashion coordinator, and he or she wants to leave the company of a toxic culture, but he or she is not able to do that because there is not much demand in the city. So that is one of the reasons he or she will get stuck in the current situation because there is less option because of the skill set or the demand in the city. So these are some of the factors. And what are the reactions to those stress? We will see that. Under the stress of ambiguous job demands and fatigue work schedule, one executive might develop ulcer, which is physical abnormalities, becoming defensive. They might become defensive. They won't even accept, yeah, this is our mistake. Sometimes this also happens, and preoccupy himself with trivial job matters. He will just ignore the important task, and he will just work on some non-important activities just to ignore the current high risk task. That will also happen. It is some of the consequences of sex. These are some of the reactions which in reality it is happening up until now. People are facing these kind of issues. Normal physiological reactions are like having fatigue, not able to respond properly to the environment, hypertension, having non-normal blood pressure, exhaustion. They're not able to perform to the optimal level. Disorders, as we already discussed, emotional disorders may also come, anxiety, depression, alcoholism, absenteeism. People don't want to show up. They want a long vacation or a leave. They don't want to show up to the work. This is also very normal, and it has been happening time and time again. But we need to change this behavior. And the defensive behavior, sometimes person might say like, yeah, I'm preoccupied with my busy work, I don't have time to look into this important task, but they are just trying to deny or delay the busy work at hand. So this kind of absenteeism also people will show under the situation of stress. Executive flame out, sometimes person will not be able to meet that kind of demands and will escape from stress, and they will just retire, and they will not be able to adapt to the nature of the problem and adapt to change, and they'll just fail. They'll just have an escape route, and they'll just fail from to adapting the change. Now there are also some organizational pressures which leads to stress. What are those? We will be discussing those. External environment refers to all factors and forces external to individuals. What are those? There can be economic factors, that this is we have seen all around the globe. Sometimes a war happens and there is recession, there is inflation. So these kind of economic slowdown will definitely affect the tensions and stresses in the job security. So these are some of the external factors, external environmental factors, which is outside of employee control, which are external to him, that is coming under environmental factors like economic factors. As we discuss cultural values, like supposing sometimes society as a society culture, like people, they relate the success to a person who is always moving up the hierarchy, but they're not concerned about anything else, but they are just attributing the success, meaning you're moving up in the hierarchy. Sometimes that kind of stress and pressures come into the families of individuals. It has been happening. It is not a new thing we are hearing, but there is a attachment of position and responsibility in high level executive position, which is giving respect in the society, whereas a person who's not that in a high position is, they will mention in the society that he's not that successful. But success means different things to different people. It is not defined only by climbing the ladder in a corporate. Marital factors can also play a picture in the stress for the organizational pressures. Family problems can be there, and there can be some external environment problems like overcrowding. Some people may feel not very comfortable in polluted air, water, or sound pollution. So these kind of factors also come into picture, which is directly attributing to the well-being of an individual. External environment refers to all factors and forces external to the individual. Sometimes there is underutilization of abilities. Supposing a person has done a solution architect course, but he's been given a developer kind of a role, there is a mismatch of capabilities and the role assignment. So sometimes a person may feel not being challenged in one's intellectual abilities. So these kind of underutilization of abilities may also lead to stress within the organizational pressures. Job insecurity, as we discussed, is one of the most common factor leading to organizational pressure. A person doesn't feel safe and secure in his position because there's always that lingering threat to his job. He may lose the income, and he may lose the status in the society. Embarrassment more than the money, he's also embarrassed that yeah, he's lost the job. There's a shame, there's a guilt which gets attached to it and intertwined with financial losses. Self-image is getting hit in most cultures, and these are dependent upon the type of work in which, as we already discussed, society puts a label on the kind of work that an individual is doing. They tag it as a success and a failure very easily when a person is not in a situation where he has a job. So they just tag people and label people as he's going through something, and they even embarrass and shame. So people are avoidant in, they find solace in not meeting too much people, it affects their self-image and confidence in most of the cultures, as they attach the type of work an individual doing to the self-image of a person. Unemployment thus weakens the self-image of those afflicted, as we discussed. Sometimes unemployment may affect his kind of image, which society considers him. Oh, he was a very big senior manager. How can he get unemployed? What is happening? Why he's not doing well? So they attach the status or the type of work that we are doing. Maybe he's doing something on his own, but they will just tag him as unemployed and he's not working in a big organization, and they'll attach status to it, and they will attach shame and guilt, and all these just combine together, and person may feel stress about these external factors. Insufficient authority. Sometimes a person might feel that maybe he's given a role, and maybe he's given that role, but sometimes he doesn't feel he has been given that kind of authority or responsibility, power to take decisions. Exorbitant work demands, there sometimes will be high tight schedules, heavy travels, and sometimes we have witnessed vice presidents saying that they have been changing the hats every 10 minutes, and sometimes they're tax specialists, sometimes they're managers, sometimes they're banker. They're overloaded all the time. Sometimes there's overload of work, which is not good for the organization, and these are some of the organization pressures. Conflict within organization, this is very common. Sometimes there's a role ambiguity, as we discussed. There's a mismatch of expectations and the role given. Working conditions affect mental health a lot nowadays. People are coming up and talking about mental health. There's a thank God Friday coming, and people have these kind of events happening. Why? Because they're continuously being, uh, coming into the office, and they're not feeling work environment. So they are coming up with these kind of ideas to make employee happy and a good mental state, because mental state is a very important thing in a working environment. What people think they should be doing compared to what subordinates think they should be doing, they're always comparing their role, that what they can achieve and what they have been provided. So there's always a sense of discontentment when an employee feels with an organization that he has been not provided with a proper role and responsibility according to his skill set. Information stress, there's a lot of information, there are loads of information available. Managers needs to be conversant with the technology. Sometimes we have seen product owners are also giving certification of technology, even they are managing the team. But because if they are working with AI, individual professionals working in AI, definitely the managers also need to learn the technology. So there's an overload of information. They're also learning to manage, they're also learning to adapt to this new role of leadership, but they also have to learn the technology. So there's an information stress which the managers are going through. They have to become instant experts, they say. Inappropriate leadership style. Sometimes they want to be dictators, authoritative, and sometimes they're hostile. They're not ready to acceptable of other people's viewpoints. So that becomes a kind of difficult situation where people are not able to express their opinions, and which may lead to the adverse effects in an organization. So that these were some of the organizational pressures which we discussed, but there are also individuals' internal conflicts. What are those? We will see lack of relevance. Sometimes we have seen in the middle management area, some of the employees, while they're earning very good, where they're in a very good position, they have been working for long hours for very number of years, but still they lack something. They say they are not relevant anymore. They're not feeling relevant. They're not doing that kind of a work that they should be giving. So they sometimes want have set up some ideals which they cannot be reached. Sometimes they search for an opportunity for an impact. You must have seen that they want to create an impact in the society. They are not satisfied where they are. They lack relevant meaning, purpose. So these kind of job shift people do in middle management. These kind of things happen. Frustrated ambitions. So because sometimes there's a cultural pressure. They always try to make you push toward a higher corporate ladder. There's always comparison, and there's always a push to reach the new status in an organization, to just keep on leading the ladder and not actually knowing that what we are doing. There's always a frustrated ambitions in the middle management, which happens. There's a transition phase, change in social status that we discuss. Sometimes people feel unappreciated, unrecognized, and unrewarded. Obsessive concern for work. Extreme cases leads to suicide, as we discussed. This has been happening and has been highlighted many number of times, but still people are very complacent and not giving stress to the mental health and the physical health of employees in an organization, which needs to be taken care of. Not getting being obsessed with work, but also leading a good life. Overextended financial commitment, sometimes people do, and they're not able to manage their mundane daily work. Lack of communication with family, these are some of the factors. When we have seen some of the managers have taken wrong decision, they have overcommitted to the financial things, and because of the overburden of work, overextended, some obsessiveness with the work, they sometimes overburden themselves, and extreme situations they become erratic in their decision making. Sometimes there are younger men in the company, they are starting to take challenges, but which is increasing a lot of pressure to the senior person in the organization. He's not able to charm the upper management as he used to do. Sometimes he's getting the deals, and sometimes he's not getting the deals. Finally, he's relieved of his job now with severe financial trouble, unable to withstand pressure and lack of support from whom he committed suicide. So these kind of things you might have seen in news articles, but this is the reality. We need to wake up now, and we need to take action, that we are not going to overstress, overburden ourselves, which may trigger us to take some wrong decisions, to overextend financial commitment, to inability to manage. But we need to take care of the family. We need to communicate well with the family for their support. So we have to be there for them, and that's what happened in extreme situations. Sometimes there's a bad, we have to maintain a balance between the career and the family demands. If you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. Sometimes you might have said that, oh, you can't handle the pressure, then you should leave the organization. There is no point of you staying here. But it's not about that. Sometimes we have to balance our demands. Sometimes the family needs, they can also be angry, resentment, feeling alone because you're always working. So we need to balance it out. It is very important. And as we discussed, there is a rush of new adults coming into the industry, and we have to maintain a balance of the experienced person and the fresher. So sometimes they might be a competitive vibes which we exchange in offices, and the knowledgeable executives may worry about they getting replaced in the new future by a MBA graduate, like he just passed out from college, and he might be having those kind of skills, and the higher management might feel so replaceable. This comes to the middle age crisis. Mid 30s experience this about success and failure. So, what are the solutions to all these problems? We'll see, and we'll also be discussing later in the modules practice good management, managing good, taking care of the people who work for you, taking care of their emotions, their feelings, providing a good environment to them, create meaningful jobs, and do not consider them as a machine or a non-living person, but consider them as a person who has dreams and desires. Modifying organization structure, there should not be any hierarchy, but rather a colleague kind of an attitude where we can discuss freely with each other their thoughts and behavior. Openness should be there, and we should try to strengthen our personal education, qualification, upskill our skills so that we don't feel the current of underutilized, or we are not in the correct position. We should have a good mental health, practice good mental health conditions, to stay in a good mental health situation. Human behavior, we should practice all the good human behavior activities. So thank you all for joining. This is coming to our end. This is one of the high magnitude topic. Nowadays, it's being very much discussed. So I request you all to join us on our WhatsApp 628-372-0458. I repeat 628-372-0458. Or you can email us on sales at the rate cornerstone advinfo.com, where we will answer all your queries. So we are also coming with exciting courses. Stay tuned with us, and thank you for joining. Thank you all.